So first I want to introduce the Reverend Phyllis Byrd. She was formerly a New Yorker, and she's been serving in Kenya, I just found out, for 30 years, where she's has married and lives with her family there. I suspect that some of you already do know her. She has itinerated in New York in the past, and currently she works in Kenya, but also throughout the continent of Africa with the Organization of African Instituted Churches as director of the Just Communities program. And she'll be telling us more about this program, but it helps members work toward good governance, poverty eradication, just environment, and creating communities in which the people of God can live with dignity. And I sort of was struck by that last, creating communities in which the people of God can live with dignity. It kind of tied into the keynote speaker's talk last night when he talked about the beloved community, and that's something churches should always be striving for, to create beloved community wherever they are. A little trouble with her internet. Oh, there she is. Okay, so Phyllis, you're up.
Okay, I mute myself. I did that. And just give me 1 second. Okay. Thank you so much. I hope I'm heard well. Can you hear me? Very good. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be with you this evening. It's actually 8:32 in the evening in Kenya. So for me, that's pretty late because I tend to go to bed early and get up early as well. I think Kay has told you a lot about me, so I don't think it's any need for me to go over what she said. I was born and raised in New York City. I'm a member of Hollis Avenue United Church of Christ. I'm a mother of 6 children, the youngest being just started university, but because of COVID, she's back here in Kenya with me, and it's good to have her back. I keep teasing her, saying, why don't she allow me to homeschool her for university? And she says, Mom, no way. But it's a pleasure having her with me, although it's because of COVID. As Kay shared with you, I work with the Organization of African Instituted Churches. For those of you who are not aware of what that is, it's an organization that works with African independent churches. I know that this is probably a repeat for some of you who already know me and know what I do, but for the sake of those who don't, I'd like to go over it. Mainline churches came to Africa and they started mainline denominations, Methodist, Anglican, Presbyterian, etc. But yet they also, some Africans wanted to be authentically African, and the mainline churches wanted them to be authentically mainline churches, which is synonymous as being Western. And the African independent churches, or many Africans across the continent of Africa, felt that they wanted to be authentically African. And what does it mean to be mainline church or like a mainline church? Some of the ways is that ecclesiastical garments, meaning the Geneva robe, was worn in the extreme heat of Africa during the summer. Communion wine was imported from Italy. And if you didn't have communion wine, that means you couldn't have Holy Communion for some reason if you could not get it. What was one of the ways that meant to be like a mainline church. For this reason, many of the African independent churches was marginalized by the mission church. They were not able to, some of them, to go to mission schools or take part in some of the facilities such as hospitals. Many of the AICs, African independent churches, are located in densely populated, poverty-stricken areas, of the country. They live on less than $2 a day. Healthcare costs is out of the reach of many people. Most self-diagnose themselves as well as self-medicate themselves. Panadol, which is kind of like an aspirin, becomes the thing that is a cure-all for everything that one has. Women living in informal settlements as well as rural areas give birth at home, sometimes in very unsanitary conditions. Water is a premium and usually comes from unclean sources. where people either bathe in water, wash their clothes in that same water. That same water is used for cooking as well. This means that many people suffer from waterborne diseases. And remember what I said, they have this very unaffordable healthcare systems. Houses are lit by candle, which is a challenge for children in school when the sun goes down. The Organization of African Instituted Churches works with grassroots community that I have just described. A couple of other things that you must know about Africa: 27 of the world's poorest countries are in sub-Saharan Africa. 1 out of 3 Africans live below the poverty line. 70% of the world's poorest people live in Africa, according to the Brookings Institute. It is in this setting that we work at the Organization of African Instituted Churches, I as a director of the Just Communities program. One of the key components of the Just Communities program is poverty is unacceptable. We say that time and time again, poverty is unacceptable. Nelson Mandela said that overcoming poverty is not a gesture of charity. It is an act of justice. It is the protection of the fundamental human rights, the right to dignity and decent life. While poverty persists, there is no true freedom. The three-pronged approach of the work of the OAIC is the resourcefulness of the people. We're always looking to see how are people resourceful. I tend not to talk about poverty when I write stories and if you've read any of my newsletters, but I like to lift up the resourcefulness of the people. Work with the community to magnify their voice. And whatever we do, we must be transformative, and it must be a sustainable program by the community. African Instituted Churches are usually, their infrastructure is, they respond to poverty in all forms of indignity. One of the ways they do this is through the food security. We have a program where we work with farmers throughout the continent of Africa and setting up demonstration farms. The purpose of this is to work with churches and the communities to start farming to combat food insecurity. This has been quite successful. We see more and more women farming as well as young people taking up farming. It is a means not only to feed their family, but also to generate income. I want to lift up a young lady. Her name is Gilder. She's a young woman from Uganda. The OAIC has identified her when she was doing her, what we call O-levels of education. We made her one of the farmer resource people, and because of her excitement of working in this program, she decided to take to do a diploma in meteorology. Sorry. Her decision to follow this career was sparked by the OAIC. Gilda works with young people, training them in the areas of agriculture as entrepreneurship. She works to mobilize farmers and setting up demonstration farms. She also works in developing seed banks that share seeds with the community and other farmers. Now, the type of farming that I'm talking about takes place in rural areas, but yet living in the city, there's limited space. So we also work with churches in introducing farming in a bag. This is a method of farming that people can you need a small space and they can farm within a bag, growing their spinach and other types of vegetables. Another program that we have at the OAIC is teen pregnancy. Girls are victimized through rape, early marriages, in some cases to older men, teachers rape them, or men as they walk to school. Because of poverty, girls are vulnerable and are easy prey to sex trafficking, early marriages, ISIS jihadist brides, as we have heard a lot in the case of Nigeria and other parts of Africa as well. Some of the girls also opt to work in foreign countries in toxic working conditions as housekeepers. And this is for the purpose of improving the wealth of their families. When girls get pregnant, there's a problem because sometimes schools do not allow them in some parts of Africa to go back to school. This means that the future of their child is dismal. They live in a life of poverty. The Organization of African Instituted Churches has started a program called Daughters of Destiny and Dignity. This is a part of, or this is the approach to deal with teen pregnancy throughout the continent of Africa. The program is working with the whole community to address these challenges. We call this an Ujamaa principle. Ujamaa is a Swahili word which means familyhood, mutual involvement, all involved in the development of the community. We believe that this approach and involvement with everyone in the community, it is a community affair. We involve the parents, the church or religious community, schools, the governments, as well as mentors. We all work together for the good of this young woman or the young girls within one particular family. We also work to improve the economics of the family by giving them chickens, as well as some get a male goat and a female goat. This is for the purpose of, and the young girl is involved in raising the chickens through the help of the agricultural departments in her particular area. The chickens, of course, they have eggs, and they can also sell the young chicks to other families as income generating. Why is this important? Many of the girls drop out of school or don't go to classes because they don't have something as simple as sanitary pads. Or they even, men will offer to buy this for them, and that gets them often involved with men. So this income not only improves the family income, but also helps the girls with buying her books, but also buying her personal care products. One of the other programs that we have is that we teach a course along with St. Paul's University on gender and leadership. This course is taught online with people throughout Africa, men and women from not only African independent churches, but other denominations as well. One of the key components of this program is that everyone in the course has to write a plan of action after they finish the course. This has proven itself to be quite exciting, and people have come up with exciting plans of what they're going to do after they finish the course. I'm sure many of you have heard the saying, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. This is one of the things that we say is that climate change is one of those things that just does not stay in Vegas. What happens in one part of the world affects or has an impact on another part of the world. We say that there is an intersectionality between climate change and poverty. If you look at some of the sustainable development goals, if you're aware of them, there are 17 goals. And throughout the 17 goals, they talk about elimination of poverty, no hunger, good health, quality education, gender equality, clean water, etc. I won't go through all 17 of them. But this is directly impacted by climate change. If there's climate change, then you don't have, it's hard to talk about poverty alleviation because when houses are washed out and when crops are gone, people live in poverty. When there is erratic weather patterns, that means people have to sometimes become refugees and go look for better life. So that we cannot just tackle one issue of saying we're going to tackle poverty without looking at the whole, the many areas that takes place. Now, because I work all over the continent of Africa, my examples will be in different countries that we work in the continent of Africa. I want to give you an example of the Congo Basin, which is an amazing, expansive forest that expands over 6 African countries: Cameroon, the Central African Republic, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Equatorial New Guinea, Gabon, and the Republic of Congo, Brazzaville, sorry. It is the most biodiverse in Africa with 10,000 species of plants. It is a home of mammals and reptiles and many other biotic life. It is the home of cultures that can trace back to 20,000 years of forest dwelling. The Congo Basin determines the weather of all of Africa. If their forest is lost or if there's deforestation, then that means that it has an effect on all of Africa. Scientists tells us that the Congo Basin is interconnected to all, I said all, of the world's weather. The impact of deforestation, which is taking place in the Congo Basin, it has an effect on the rainfall in, guess where? The Great Lake regions of the USA. What happens in Vegas or what happens in the Congo Basin does not just stay in Africa, but it also has an impact on all of Africa. A country like Guinea-Conakry, which is located in West Africa, is the second largest production of bauxite in the whole world. One would think that this would transmit as a thriving economy, yet this is the opposite. Bauxite, gold, and trees are being exploited and of untold number from countries, leaving a trail of destruction. The OAIC has a tree planting program, but not only tree planting, but we know that we also have to find alternative sources for people who cook, women cook with using firewood. So we're also involved in planting trees and finding alternative sources for trees, but also climate justice because of all the things that I have talked about. As I conclude, all the programs that I have mentioned are supported by you and your gifts. We greatly appreciate your support. To me, as I work in Kenya, the New York conference has been amazing, supportive to me, and your prayers, I felt them time and time again. But the grants and the giving that you have also supports all the programs that I've talked about. Finally, I want to say a word of appreciation to the New York conference for the theme Rooted in Love. I hope that this becomes a hashtag. I hope you understand what I mean by that, for the churches in the New York conference. I hope that it's not just a theme used for a few days and then you kind of hang it up, put it on a shelf and forget about it. But I hope that this guides the way that the New York conference lives out their talk. When Kay sent me the theme, my mind went to a tree that we have in Africa that's called the baobab tree. It's a huge tree. It has a long lifespan. It's fire resistant bark. It has fire resistant bark, and it is a drought resistant tree. To be rooted in love is like the baobab tree. Every part of the tree gives of itself, its seeds, its leaves, its roots, its flowers, its fruit, pulp, and the bark are all edible. To be a church rooted in love means that even in a world that is going through a drought when it comes to love, a world that is going through a drought when it comes to solidarity and wondering who is our neighbor, a world that is looking inward within itself, we have to be drought resistant. Hashtag rooted in love. Unashamedly thick-skinned and fireproof as we reach out to even those who do not look like us. My friends, hashtag rooted in love. Like the baobab tree, a church that gives of itself totally, not only a conference that looks at what's happening in New York and we're only concerned about New York, but a concern has to be about issues that takes place throughout the world, throughout the USA. When states like Michigan is suffering because of the lack of water in some areas of Michigan, that should be our concern. When issues that are taking place in other parts of the world, we have to be curious about what is happening and want to know what is happening and how can we be in solidarity with them in the mission of God. How do we pray for others as we share our prayers that we need as well? Hashtag, this is a church that is rooted in love. For this, I say amen, New York Conference, and thank you for listening to me. And I look forward to your questions as my dear sister Rachel as well. Thank you.